Hey guys, listen up carefully to what I'm about to tell you. The fridge you see on the screen looks just like a deep freezer, right? But there's a hidden story behind this fridge that'll keep you up at night. It's a mystery that's been waiting for an answer for the past 40 months. There's no carrot, radish, or ice cream inside this fridge. Instead, there's a rotten skeleton lying in there. When I was researching this case, I was completely shocked. I just couldn't wrap my head around what was going on. It's there. Why is this skeleton locked inside this fridge? And the biggest question is, whose skeleton is it? When you hear this, you'll be shocked. To understand this mystery, we need to go back to a night when it all started. Friends, this chilling incident happened on the 19th of September 2020 in Chak Salempur, Jaswant Nagar Block, Itawa District, Uttar Pradesh. When this horrifying event came to light in 2020, the fear it spread among the locals was beyond words. People just couldn't believe what this girl had done. After all, what did the girl do that turned things so scary, making the whole situation go completely terrifying? Today's episode is so intense that once the video ends, you won't be able to make sense of it for a moment. And this chilling story will haunt your mind for a whole week. It'll leave you deep in thought. But before we move on, let me tell you this is a true story episode, so you can watch it even with your eyes closed. Not just that, the way we tell the story is unique, so all the visuals will start forming in your own mind as you listen. If you close your eyes, before I start the story, let me show you a character. Take a look at this girl's picture. Her name is Rita, and there's a guy too, but we don't have his picture and didn't find one during our research. I got some complaints last time in the True Story episode that I said I wouldn't use sound effects, but there were actually too many. So this time, I'm just going to skip them. I'll try to use as few sound effects as possible. Date: the 19th of September 2020, Chak Salempur, Jaswant Nagar Block, Itawa District, Uttar Pradesh. That night, like any other, seemed pretty ordinary, but hidden in that night was a strange darkness that shook not just one family, but the entire town of Jaswant Nagar. Jaswant Nagar is a small town in Itawa where people share each other's joys and sorrows. But the night of September 19th was different. On the night of the 19th of September 2020, a girl stepped out of her house and never came back. Her name was Rita, a 22-year-old innocent girl who never imagined her life would take such a sudden and painful turn. She's gonna take a turn. Back then, everything at Rita's house was pretty normal, but that silence was like the calm before a storm. On the night of September 19th, Rita stepped out of her house and vanished into thin air like smoke in the wind. When she didn't come back all night, her family was up all night, worried, sick. The whole family was stressed out. Her parents called every relative they knew. They asked her friends too, but no one had any clue where she was. The family that once prayed for their daughter's happiness was now praying for her every single moment. They just hoped she was safe wherever she was and would come back home. That terrible night passed, but there was still no sign of Rita. Rita's mom was pacing around every corner of the house, praying to God she'd show up, and her dad was doing everything he could to find her. Then, the news reached the police station. The morning after Rita disappeared, on September 20th, the family went to the police and filed a missing person report. When the police questioned the family about whether they suspected anyone, one name came up. It was Ramkumar. Remember this name carefully. There are going to be some huge revelations about him later on. Now, it had been a week since Rita disappeared, but there was still no sign of her. Then, one day, a farmer from the village was heading to his field when he noticed something by the edge of the field. What he saw shocked him. There, by the field's edge, was a rotten skeleton. Seeing this, the farmer ran screaming back to the village. When the police arrived, they found the skeleton in that condition. It was hard to say whose body it was, because it was completely burnt either by some chemical or by fire. The problem was, it was tough to identify the skeleton. The police found a pair of sandals there, clearly women's sandals, along with some jewelry and clothes. From that, the police figured it was a girl's skeleton. When this news spread in the village, everyone started wondering if it was Rita's body. Hearing the rumors, Rita's parents came to the spot, and when they saw the clothes, sandals, and all near the skeleton, she started screaming and crying non-stop as soon as she saw it. The police seized the skeleton and refused to hand it over to Rita's family. But here's the real twist. Were those sandals and clothes really Rita's? And was that skeleton actually hers? Or was there some bigger conspiracy behind all this? You'll get the answer by the end of the video, and when you hear it, you'll be left breathless. The police were totally unwilling to accept that the skeleton was Rita's. They said they couldn't confirm anything just based on a skeleton and a few sandals. It turned out that the skeleton was indeed Rita's, and their suspicion was right. The police took the skeleton from there and sent it to the post-mortem house at Bhimrao Ambedkar Joint Hospital. They locked it up in a fridge, the same fridge I showed you a picture of at the beginning. The police told Rita's family that they wouldn't hand over the skeleton to them until the investigation was complete. Hearing this, Rita's parents were shocked and confused, wondering what had happened. They kept going back and forth to the police station, but the cops just kept saying that until it's proven that the skeleton is Rita's, it'll stay in the fridge. You won't be given it. Rita's parents said they have nothing to do with it. Why would anyone else wear their daughter's sandals and bangles? But these are cops we're talking about. Where else would they give the skeleton? The police said they'll do a DNA test first, and only if it matches will they make a final decision. Rita's parents thought, okay, fine, let the DNA test happen. How long will it take? A week or maybe 2, tops. Look, Rita's missing. It was the 19th of September 2020, and the skeleton was found on the 24th of September 2020, 5 days after she went missing. After that, 2020 ended. The whole of 2021 passed by, and now it was 2022. It had been almost a year and a half by then. The skeleton identified as Rita was still sitting inside the fridge. Meanwhile, her parents were running around dealing with the police. The DNA reports still hadn't come back. They said, "What's done is done. At least give us the skeleton so we can perform our daughter's last rites and find some peace for ourselves and for Rita's soul." But amidst all this hope for peace and closure, the law was like a brick wall. The cops strictly refused to help. Meanwhile, Rita's parents were devastated, crying their eyes out. Even if they got justice, where would it come from? It had been 17 months since Rita went missing. That's almost a year and a half. Forget about getting the DNA report. No one even came to collect samples from her parents. And those shameless cops started saying, "How can we just hand over this skeleton to you?" Her parents asked. "How much more will you torture us? How much longer will you take?" It's almost been 2 years. Only now did the cops feel some shame. What could they do? They had the skeleton, and they had the parents too. The people claiming it was their daughter's skeleton were going to the police station every day. All the police had to do was call a forensic expert, collect a small sample, and send it to the lab. Couldn't the police handle even that much? So why did they keep this case hanging for a year and a half? Were they waiting for the skeleton to come out of the fridge on its own and say, "Yes, I am their daughter"? There's a limit to shamelessness, and the police definitely crossed it. Then finally, at the beginning of 2022, a lot happened. The people claiming it was their daughter's skeleton were going to the police station every day. All the police had to do was call a forensic expert, collect a small sample, and send it to the lab. Couldn't the police handle even that much? So why did they keep this case hanging for a year and a half? Were they waiting for the skeleton to come out of the fridge on its own and say, "Yes, I am their daughter"? There's a limit to shamelessness, and the police definitely crossed it. Then, finally, at the beginning of 2022, a lot happened. Months passed, but there was no sign of the DNA report. Finally, on the 26th of March 2022, the DNA report arrived. Rita's parents were both happy and sad. They thought, at least now, they'll hand over the skeleton to us. The report reached the police station, and when they opened and read the envelope, it said, inconclusive, meaning the DNA sample wasn't collected properly, so it was hard to tell if the skeleton was really Rita's or not. When Rita's parents found out the report was at the station, they reached there, but all they got was disappointment. They were told that the authorities weren't sure if the skeleton actually belonged to their daughter or someone else, so they wouldn't be handing over the skeleton yet. However, this time, the police assured them not to worry. They said they'd take another sample and send it for testing again. Feeling disheartened, Rita's parents headed back home, and time went by. A few months passed, and August 2022 came around. They were called back to the station for DNA testing once more. New DNA samples were collected again, and the sample was sent to that lab in Hyderabad. Even after that, about 11 months passed, but the report just wouldn't come. Meanwhile, Rita's parents were worn out running back and forth to the police. Finally, on the 10th of July, 2023, the second DNA report arrived. When they opened the envelope and read it, it was the exact same report again, saying that the sample wasn't collected properly, so they couldn't tell if the skeleton was Rot's or not. The surprising part was that this was the second time they had sent the sample. The first time, they already said you didn't send the samples properly, so they should have called a professional to collect them. But out of laziness, they sent the samples the same way again. Seriously, what kind of joke is this? What else could you expect from the DNA report then? This is 21st century India, and sometimes we're just ashamed of our system. Parents, broken down from crying so much, carrying their daughter's photo, running back and forth to the police station, all just because the DNA wasn't handled properly. They're not sending it. Then some blind followers ask why India ranks so low on the happiness index. Have you ever seen the real India? Delhi, Mumbai, Lucknow aren't the whole country. Look, when Rita's parents found out again that the DNA report didn't prove anything, all their hopes just shattered. After sending DNA samples twice, even the cops got lazy. Now they don't even want to send a third sample. And meanwhile, the skeleton is still rotting in a fridge at the morgue. Rita's parents were still running back and forth to the police station, but they couldn't see any hope. They'd gotten tired from all the back and forth. Then, a kind man told them that the police weren't going to help them just like that. How long were they going to keep getting the runaround? He advised them to take the matter to court instead of wasting time at the station. So, in August 2023, Rita's parents hired a lawyer and filed a petition in the Allahabad High Court. They got a hearing date in October 2023. The lawyer appeared before the judge in the High Court. They argued that the parents have been waiting for the last 3 years to give their daughter a proper funeral. Even now, her remains are locked away in a fridge in a hospital morgue, and they haven't been able to get her released. The police aren't handing her over because the DNA report came back inconclusive. This happened because the police didn't collect the samples properly. They sent DNA samples twice, but both times the samples were so poorly taken that the report was unclear. The lawyer also told the judge. He said that when it came time to send the sample for the third time, the cops made an excuse about the budget, saying they'd send it only when the budget was approved. The lawyer requested the High Court judge, saying if there's no money in the government treasury for them, then, since the parents are claiming that this is their daughter, they should be allowed to get the DNA test done at their own expense. Hearing all this, the judge couldn't believe it for a moment. He got emotional. Tears came to his eyes. Then, scolding the police angrily, he said, "There's a fridge in the The skeleton has been lying there for 3 years. The parents wake up every day hoping to find out who it is, whether it's their daughter or someone else. At least make a decision already. Their daughter died once, but her parents have been dying a little every day for 3 years. The court got really angry, wondering how anyone could do this. Then the High Court judge sternly scolded the police department and ordered them to collect DNA samples immediately and conduct the test. And this time, send someone competent to collect the samples. And they also ordered that the test results be presented as soon as possible to the parents and to this court. Tell us quickly whose skeleton it is. As soon as the High Court reprimanded them, the police sprang into action. Right then, a special team was formed. Proper samples were collected, and these samples were sent to the Hyderabad lab for the 3rd time. This might be the first time in the world that a DNA sample is being sent for testing a 3rd time. But even now, it's stuck. That's how the Uttar Pradesh police usually are. Even after the court's order, it took 2 more tries. They had to send samples. What's going on here? The first sample was sent on October 26, then the second on December 23. Finally, on the 30th of January 2024, the DNA report came through, and the reports for the last 2 samples, which were sent after the court's order, clearly stated that the skeleton that had been locked up in the morgue fridge of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar Hospital in Itawa for the past 40 months was none other than Rita. The same Rita who went missing on the 19th of September 2020, 3 years ago. After the report came, the police. Rita's parents were called. The police were embarrassed too, when they were told that the skeleton was their own daughter Rita's. The poor parents started crying. But deep down, they were also relieved that finally their daughter would get peace. Whether they cried or felt happy, they didn't really know. They had hoped that maybe the skeleton wasn't hers, and that their daughter might still come back home somehow. But that hope, which had lasted for 3 years, was shattered. After that, the bridge was finally opened after 40 months, and Rita's skeleton was freed from that captivity. Freedom was granted, and under the supervision of the local SDM, the police respectfully took Rita's skeleton back to her village and handed it over to her mother. Then, near the same field where Rita's skeleton was found 3 years ago, they buried her, according to all the traditional rites. So, you might think the story ends here. Well, not yet, because Rita's skeleton was freed from captivity, but one question was still trapped. Who killed Rita? And why was she murdered? Now it was clear that Rita wasn't just missing, she had been killed. The police finally woke up from their slumber and restarted the investigation. Now there were a lot of questions that needed answers. Why was Rita murdered? And most importantly, who killed her? The police also realized their own shortcomings, that the investigation they should have done 3 years ago was now being done. However, when Rita went missing, her parents had filed a report at the police station the very next day, on the 20th of September 2020, and had also given the name of a person I mentioned earlier. His name was Ramkumar. He was absolutely sure that Ramkumar was responsible for our daughter going missing. But back then, the police didn't pay much attention because, in cases like this, it's common for the girl to run away and then come back home on her own. Even when a skeleton was found 5 days later, they couldn't identify it. So, the cops kept brushing off the case and never even called Ramkumar in for questioning. Now, after 40 months, the truth finally came out, and the High Court had already reprimanded the police. They started remembering Ramkumar. When the police began looking for him, they found out he was a married guy from the same village. His family suspected that he was the last person seen with their daughter that night. While Rita's family was blaming Ramkumar, he moved away from the village with his wife and kids. But 3 years passed before the police actually started searching for him. When Ramkumar and his family found out about this, the 50-year-old Ramkumar himself went to the police station and surrendered. They're still trying to get him to tell the whole truth. According to Rita's mother, Ramkumar was having an affair with Rita. When his wife found out, she, along with their son and Ramkumar, killed Rita. Rita's mother also named another person, Satyendra Kumar, as being involved in the murder. But Ramkumar took all the blame on himself because he didn't want to put his family in danger. Maybe that's why this story isn't just about Rita's family, but about everyone stuck in the endless maze of the system's paperwork. This case reminds us all that a delay in a DNA test means a delay in justice. It shows how important it is to take the right steps at the right time. Otherwise, some stories remain a secret forever, and sometimes these delays trap an entire life like it's locked inside a fridge for 40 months. Even now, I can't wrap my head around how a 20-something girl could be with a 4550-year-old man who is. He's already married. I mean, what kind of relationship was Rita expecting with that old guy? Rita did mess up, no doubt, but honestly, I blame that old man way more. He was about the same age as her daughter. Didn't he feel any shame? Couldn't he have explained things to her? She was just a kid. Maybe she couldn't even tell right from wrong. What kind of love is this? And what would you even call this so-called love? Over and out.